Carl and Liam here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial.com for sure. And it's getting goosebumps. It's season 4, the last handful of episodes of the Goosebumps TV series. Yes, season 4 features just 4 episodes. While they are all double, it is still just 4 episodes. And we're going to be covering the first of that season in this video. It's How I Got My Shrunken Head, the first and second episode of season 4, and the 67th and 68th episode overall. When I reflect on that, I can't believe we've done this many up to this point. It doesn't actually feel like that many.
It's true when you say the number. That sounds pretty crazy, but hard to believe we're here at the very end at the same time.
Agreed. It's going to be even more impressive when we get to the final of the 4th season. But this is the 39th book in the original Goosebumps series and was first published in 1996. Written and directed by Ron Oliver. Our usual cast of directors pretty much cover all of season 4. And Ron Oliver, it's a name that we know pretty well.
Yeah, it's a familiar sounding one at this point.
Do you remember this book? Because I had vague recollection of this book. Not so much the plot, but mainly the sort of titular shrunken head.
Yeah. I don't remember what the cover looks exactly, but I'm sure if I saw it, it'd be like, yeah, that rings a bell. But yeah, this is one of the episodes that, you know, it's probably one of the more commonly like known ones, I would imagine, because it's like at least in my mind, when I hear the title, it's sort of one that it's like, yeah, I know that one kind of thing. I don't know if because I watched Goosebumps probably not that long ago compared to you. So obviously I would have watched the final season last. So that's probably why it's quite fresh in the memory. I don't know how. Do you remember these episodes at all? These last couple?
No,
not at all, really.
None of them. And this one, at no point was I like, oh yeah, that rings a bell, or that nothing in this, and certainly nothing in the future ones either. Definitely never saw these.
Yeah, there's certain aspects of this particular episode that stuck with me. I'll mention it as we go through it, but yeah, there's one thing in particular. It's a certain phrase that one of the characters continuously says throughout the episode that's just like burned into my mind, but we'll get into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
In case make sure you highlight it in case I didn't, if I didn't pick
I've
up on
written
it.
down I've noted it, so that's all right.
Cool. All right, cast. Daniel Clark as Mark Rowe. Barbara Radecki as Alice Rowe. Dixie Seattle as Aunt Benna. George Chiang as Jimmy Lowe. Becky Lantos, a.k.a. Rebecca Henderson, as Kareen Hawlings. Laura Press as Dr. Carolyn Hawlings. And Richard Fitzpatrick as Dr. Richard Hawlings. A fairly large cast with some familiar faces, as is kind of what we get a lot in the latter part of the Goosebumps TV show. Several actors here have played roles in other ones. Rebecca Henderson, in particular, played Margaret in season 1, Stay Out of the Basement, one of the most significant episodes of the entire run. Quite recognizable. Instantly, I was like, oh yeah, look at her.
Yeah, you mentioned it, but it's true. Like throughout these final episodes, they appear to have brought back some Goosebumps alumni to like reappear. I guess also they went through the episodes and I think they probably picked some of the better actors from what it would appear. So it's not a negative thing for sure.
Damn right, good shout. And I love the term alumni to describe this, because I wonder if that's how they feel about it.
I just wonder how that came about, like especially in someone that like her was in such an earlier episode, and then they get contacted by the producers or whatever, like the casting director,
Years
to come back
later.
to appear in this, and like, are they still acting at that point? Because a lot of these actors, if you look on their like IMDb pages, they didn't really do much else.
1 or
That's
2
interesting.
at most.
Yeah, I wonder how that came about.
Absolutely. Richard Fitzpatrick also had a different role. He played Mr. Kramer in season 1's Night of the Living Dummy 2. I didn't recognize or remember him.
No, I did not recognize him. Just the kids, but let's go anyway.
Yeah, and the other thing that I thought was cool, and I read this beforehand, so when it came to this scene, I paused it to make sure I saw. Director Ron Oliver actually has a cameo in this episode. Yes.
Yeah, like it feels to me anyway, just covering like the final season, it felt like they were aware this is our final couple of episodes and they put quite a lot into it. Like obviously talk about how that comes to be, like through reviewing each of the episodes, but it seems like they really knew this was it, you know.
It does. You have a very, very good point there as well. In case you're wondering where Ron Oliver is, he is the man in the background sitting in a chair in the airport scene.
Ooh, bloody scene stealer.
Right. It's late and dark, and a boy comes out of his front door calling out to someone. It seems as though someone knocked and ran off, but they didn't leave a package addressed to Mark. This is Mark, and apparently it came from somewhere in the jungle of Balladora, and it's from his aunt, Benna. He takes them inside, and we see his room is a tribute to jungle artifacts and symbols. There's lots of that kind of mysterious, ancient Aztec stuff like that, jungle style stuff, you know, and he puts the box on his bed and starts to look for a tool to cut it open. But behind his back, it starts to move, but stops when he turns around. So we're straight in here.
Mm.
The box starts to go crazy. When he turns around, he sees that it's been ripped open as though something burst out. Something starts to move really fast around his room, knocking some things over. And it seems to end up under his bed. And when he looks, he sees a shrunken head with glowing eyes. And that's our fade to black, cold open, as it were. We'll praise the look of the shrunken head. It did look cool. Nice practical design.
Yeah, and also I thought it was worth mentioning how, you know, we've said before about fake outs in the opening segments of Goosebumps episodes, but this surprisingly wasn't one. Like, I was seriously expecting him to look under there and just see it was his cat or something like that. But there actually was something. It was quite surprising. And yeah, I thought the truck and head looked pretty legit, you know, and the part where it floats towards him, yeah, that's quite creepy, you know, for, again, we're always mentioning for a kid's show, but for a kid's show, it's quite creepy.
No, well, you highlighted something I didn't know, which is you're right. Normally, our kind of cold opens, if we call them that, do result in fake outs. I'd say 9 times out of 10. So this is a rare example of where it isn't. It's just a continuation.
Because we're always criticizing, aren't we? That it was just something's in the bushes. Oh, what's going to happen? The kid's going to get got immediately in the first 10, 2 minutes of the episode. It's not going to happen, is it? But this time it actually is something. So got to appreciate that.
Yes, he tries to get out of his room as it floats towards him. His door is opened by his mother and a man. Now, we are about to enter territory that we do not get enough of in Goosebumps, and it is both funny, just a highlight of the episode. I guess it's odd because the things I feel like some as a highlight in these last runs aren't things that normally you should give a shit about. But because we've watched so many, when it breaks the traditional norm, we get excited. And as I've highlighted, this is not his father. This is a man. It's like, okay, that's different. Of course, obviously, they see the head is just lying on the floor. And it seems as though his mother is attempting the dating game and not getting very far with it. As we see this fella get freaked out by her weirdo son and drive off in a sports car, and her hilariously shouting, "Call me." And I just laughed. I was like, this is brilliant. This is so good.
I just wrote, like, fuck that kid. The mum is going to be super pissed. She was minutes away from tapping that kid. Come on, you screwed her chances.
It's brilliant. And she does. She's upset and angry with Mark, confronting him about ruining her date. I was like, that's amazing. This is so... I don't think we've had an episode that's ever done this.
No, and also like you mentioned the whole single mum story. That is at least different. We haven't had that. You've always got this 2 parents, so that's different, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, actually, the location existence of a father is not mentioned once in this as well.
Yeah, don't know what the story is, but they don't ever really touch on it, do they?
Yeah, that's cool. All right, Mark's pleas about the head are dismissed as a dream, of course, and she's not loving the makeup of his room as he loudly... She's talking to him, and he just goes in a video game and starts making loads of noises and stuff, and is right obnoxious behavior.
Or a leopard skin rug. But a red ant farm? Things they're getting out of hand, Mark. Mark?
Kalia!
Are you listening to me?
Kalia!
Yeah, it was at this moment. There's a particular phrase that he uses throughout the episode, and he uses it immediately there. I don't even want to say it, but it's the Kalia. He says that a lot throughout the episode, and as soon as I heard that, I was like, "Yep, that's burned into my mind." Him shouting that, it's really, really high pitched and annoying, and yeah, it said a lot throughout these two episodes. So
yep, you have. I did. Of course, actually, now I know what it is. You're right. I did highlight because I literally said he tells her about his word Kalia that he made up, which makes him feel stronger.
Yeah, I mean, it does have a purpose ultimately, so it's not like he's just saying it for no reason, but it's just annoying. That's what
She then tells him to clean the room up and get rid of some of his junk. And blaming the head, he puts it on the shelf, and we cut to later at night. We start to see flashes of a scene in the jungle, a woman holding a cake that says, "Be careful" on it in icing. And Mark wakes up calling for his aunt, Benna. This I actually liked. And I liked it again because it felt different. Now, we've done dream stuff before, but this didn't feel like a traditional scared dream. I actually got the impression that this was like a repressed or buried memory style dream. And I thought, oh, we don't do, and that's different. We don't do enough of that. And I was like, okay, they're probably going to expand on that later on, as I didn't remember what the story was or didn't know about the story. It was intriguing.
Yeah, that's true.
It's morning. The phone is ringing and his mother is annoyed. She has to get out of the shower to answer it. And I laugh at that as well. It's Aunt Benna who's checking and Mark got the shrunken head, and Mark ends up speaking to her about it. And Aunt Benna wants Mark to come and visit her in the jungle for 2 weeks, something that his mother is very happy to do. And I highlighted here, this is a different take on a parent.
Yeah, I just put that as delightful parenting as always from Goosebumps.
Oh yeah, it's not great. It's not a great showcase of her, but it's still good.
I can understand because they have given you at least an example beforehand as to how he's negatively affected her in her life in some way with the guy coming home. So you can understand from her perspective maybe why just send him away for a little bit. He does seem like a bit of an annoying kid, to be fair.
2 weeks at home alone, man. She's gonna have some fun.
Now that I have kids of my own, I can relate.
Mark is very happy and starts to get his stuff ready. We then transition to the island of Balladora, with Mark arriving at a small airport. I will stop here and say, this felt really very much like an old school Goosebumps episode in relation to the fact that they were willing to do several locations and sets. So much, we didn't really highlight enough, but we really get stuck sometimes in one place and stay there, which is clearly a set. This felt obviously set-wise, but it still felt bigger. It felt quite encompassing, you know, and this airport scene I thought was particularly strong.
Yeah, like I agree. And I mentioned in the opening about how a lot of the episodes, or pretty much all of them throughout this final run, they all feel like they had the production value is quite high. So I don't know where they found like this last money or something, but they just clearly threw a lot of money into these last couple of episodes, like you said, with the locations, large cast and things like that. Yeah, it feels like they feel like proper productions, not just like you say on just like a singular set somewhere.
And in this airport, because it's a small sort of airport, they packed it out. There are a lot of extras, people hanging around. Ron Oliver's one of them. I imagine the rest are all production crew and all that. But it's busy, a small, you know, you can almost picture an Indiana Jones style trip here.
Yeah, it has that sort of vibe, you know, definitely.
Yeah, some man ends up blocking Mark's route and says his made-up word, Kalia. And he disappears after Mark's attention is grabbed by Jimmy, his pilot, who is dressed in Elvis gear. And I wish had more to do in this episode.
That is a disappointment. When he's in it, you're like, okay, here we go. You got the eccentric adult character's been introduced, but unfortunately, he does disappear at one point and never returns, which is sad.
Yes, indeed. And he reveals they're going to have to fly to Benna's camp. And as they leave, 2 sinister-looking men watch.
How you doing? I'm Jimmy. I'm your pilot.
Why do I need a pilot?
Camp's a whole day away by road, and it's too dangerous to drive anyway.
So your plane's safer?
No, but it's faster.
No stuff's going on. And in the air, Jimmy reveals that he's obsessed with Hollywood and thinks he will be a movie star. This scene is beautifully awkward. It's beautifully awkward on purpose. 2 good actors with good chemistry knowing that we have to make this scene really awkward and off-putting and stuff and nail it for me. Loved it. It's one of my favorite scenes in the episode.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's why it's disappointing that he leaves, because like you said, they got such good chemistry. I know you would like to see them more play off against each other more as they like tumble down like the rabbit hole together or something. Some kind of like if it was episodes focused on just them like going on all these misadventures and stuff like that and getting into trouble, that'd been like a lot of fun.
The misadventures of Jimmy and Mark. One's out dresses like Elvis as well. The plane starts to have engine trouble as it starts to go down, and Mark hears a voice saying Kalia from the Shrunken Head. He takes it out and starts to repeat the word, leading to him shouting it, and proper shouting it, and the plane's engine issues are rectified. So we now kind of get an idea that there's magic in the air. It lands, and Jimmy is met by Kareen, who hands over supplies. It turns out that Kareen doesn't actually want to be here. She's pissy about being in the jungle and is here because of her parents, who are a pair of scientists. Before he leaves, Jimmy warns Mark to be careful, as we then see him and Kareen arriving at the camp that has a culty look. And we see that the two men from the airport are also here.
Wow, this place is so cool.
Oh yeah, fun city.
Well, it's better than my neighborhood. I mean, a bunch of boring houses full of boring people. Wouldn't you rather live here?
Let me draw you a map. If I even have to look at another fried banana, I will throw myself into the tiger pit.
Mark and Kareen talk, both complaining about their lives. He is brought to Benna, but it turns out to be Dr. Carolyn Hawlings, Kareen's mother. She greets him. She seems friendly, but keeps deflecting when he asks about Benna. But his persistence sees Dr. Richard Hawlings arrive and reveals that Benna has disappeared. There's a nice flow here as we kind of, although I've sped through it, we move through the camp, we talk to Kareen, we meet Carolyn, and we meet Richard. We find the location or details about Benna. It's all done naturally and nice as we kind of move our way through the camp. The only thing, like I said, I thought was weird is that immediately I was like, this looks like a cult, the way they're all dressed and like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it does.
Outside, Mark demands to know what he wasn't told already, but Rich dismisses his concerns as Benna often goes off on her own. He says that they're planning to send out a party and Mark wants to be part of it. Mark's quite full on this, quite forefront, quite, I want to do this, I want to do that, and blah, 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 blah. He seems to think because of his association or what he likes to do, he's automatically going to be good at it.
Hmm.
Richard is then distracted by the licorice gum that Jimmy gave Mark. He apparently is obsessed with it and is distracted by some of the works dropping off some equipment, while Kareen tries to assail Mark's worries about Benna. I did think that was so forced in, the licorice gum. You know, he's one of those where I was like, well, that's going to come back, isn't it?
Yes, way too specific and then be mentioning it for no reason.
What? Is there something on me? A bug?
Licorice gum. I love licorice. What are you doing, you clumsy fools? That's valuable equipment.
I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever had licorice gum. I'm not a fan of licorice anyway, but licorice gum.
Yeah, I could take it or leave it, but that sounds like an odd pairing to me. Gum and licorice, yeah.
I imagine it would be like a juicy fruit. You chew it for all of 5 seconds and then it's just flavor gone.
Yeah, that sounds quite intense though. Licorice gum.
We then cut to a dream where Mark is in the jungle and comes across his aunt who's holding a kind of coin necklace. As it spins, the dream transitions to Mark trapped in a spider's tunnel as a tarantula comes towards him. It then turns into some sort of human-spider hybrid that is genuinely unnerving before waking up caught in a mosquito netting of his bed. What the fuck? Where did this come from?
It's true. Comes completely out of left field, and I put down myself saying that, like, what the hell was that? A weird crap? Like, it's genuinely actually quite freaky.
we can't do it justice, but the human spider hybrid and the practical effects of it, the tarantula's a tarantula. Gross enough and it's ready. The spider tunnel is weird and unusual, but the imagination and idea, I mean, for such a brief shot, you're right about money and time. Like, why so brief? It doesn't come back again.
Yeah, it just flashes quickly on the screen. And you're like, did I just really see that? Like they've taken someone, they put like a makeup prosthetic on them, and it looks pretty freaky for sure.
Credit where credit's due, folks. He then hears the shrunken head repeating the Kalia word before it comes out, glowing eyes and floats. And Mark realizes it wants him to follow, so he does. He leads him through the camp and into a supply tent and to a cupboard, where Mark opens it and, just to age us all, finds a TV and a lot of videotapes. Yes, it's that kind of era.
It's the 90s.
And he picks one up that is labeled date 24 to 29 and puts it in the VCR. For all you kids out there, that is what you would play video cassettes on. Video cassette recorder. It is a recording done by Benna, and she reveals in the video that she has just been joined by the Hawlings. Mark skips and sees that Carolyn started to go through Benna's research. So we're kind of getting a little bit more about the Rawlings here, even though I kind of feel like the episode hadn't set up any villains yet, so it's kind of natural that they would have some villainous intent. Yep. Mark is disturbed by the arrival of Richard, who comes to the tent and activates the radio and makes a call to point 0. He reveals to the person on the other end of the line that they are unaware of Benna's location, she ran away, and that they plan to use Mark to draw her back in, which obviously Mark, hiding under the table, hears all of this, and he escapes at the back but runs into one of the goons. Mark tells the goon his predicament, but the goon doesn't answer, so Mark hits him, causing the goon to roar. He then picks Mark up. Mark struggles and knocks off his sunglasses as Richard arrives, and we see the goon's eyes are glowing, and that is the end of part 1. This whole sequence is done pretty well. Reveals some stuff, has a little tiny bit of tension of Mark hiding under the table, and then sets up the big reveal of the kind of goon characters being, well, we don't know yet, but obviously being under control in some way, or I don't know what the word is, because of the green eyes, like, supernatural.
Yeah, like possessed in someone, maybe.
In fact, I'm afraid you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I thought the first part was pretty good. It set up some kind of overarching mystery. Something's going on. All these weird dreams, and like you said, it's the cultish feel to the facility that he's in. But then it escalates quite quickly at the end. And I thought, just the cliffhanger of the guy with blinding white eyes, which probably was one of the effects in the episode that didn't hold up quite as well. But I thought it was a little bit random, a bit of a random cliffhanger, especially if you happen to not get the second part after or something. That would just be like all you're left with, and a bit random. It leaves you with just so many questions, and like I mentioned before, more often than not, if this aired on TV, you wouldn't even get the second part after, so you'd be like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, like that was the end. He died. But of course, we do have a second part. And once the recap is done, we find Mark being taken back into the tent as he reveals to Richard that he knows he's lying. However, Richard doesn't go the direction I expected. He defends himself, claiming that he didn't tell him the complete truth, but he did it because he was worried Mark wouldn't understand, and then decides to explain the full story to him, beginning 5 years ago. This surprisingly took me, wasn't what I expected. I expected second part, wahaha, villain, but instead he explains something that actually ends up being really fucking convincing.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's true.
In flashback form, we learned that Benna studied ancient tribes, and she stumbled across a form of jungle magic that could give a person telekinetic power. Benna began to perform experiments on some of the locals, but it didn't work, and it turned them into zombies. Now, that I found fascinating. Because of the flashback form, we see this. So I naturally was made to think this is reality. And I was like, oh, I didn't expect the character of Benna to be maybe an accidental villain.
Yeah, that'd be certainly an interesting idea. And it's obviously as well quite a dark notion, the fact they even show you as well experimenting on these people that are strapped down on beds and things like that. They definitely push it at times, in this episode, I would say.
Yes, I love a bit of bravery. Richard carries on and reveals that the jungle magic experimentation drove her mad and she was threatening to destroy all the research. After they tried to talk her down, she ran off into the jungle. And the phone call Mark received was a set recording that Richard now plays him. Now, while I did like this, it doesn't make sense. The recording he plays him is super amateurish. And when they was on the phone earlier on, it was quite clear that not only was it a much longer conversation, but we could kind of hear the sort of voice on the other end of the line, and it wasn't like this. It doesn't quite work for me.
I thought the same thing. When they play it back, it makes her sound super robotic, and
yeah.
Whereas when she was speaking on the phone, it was much more like natural. Like, yeah, there was no like pauses or nothing. No, yeah,
because there was a back and forth. Also, it went from speaking to the mother to Mark. So, what did you do during that part?
Yeah, no, it doesn't work really, does it?
It doesn't, unfortunately. So the plan was to get Mark here and use him to get Benna back so they can help her. And Richard is concerned that she might use jungle magic to harm herself and maybe even the entire world. So he asks Mark for help and Mark agrees. It is a really convincing story. I was impressed. Even though I didn't believe it, I was impressed.
You weren't sold on it?
Oh, well, Goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
But amazingly, again, this episode is going to do something I didn't expect. As the next day, a search party is formed and Richard sends Corinne to wake Mark up. But when she checks his tent, he's gone. And we see him making his way through the jungle, having disbelieved Richard's story. And I was like, I did not expect that. Because when he disagrees, I was like, okay, that's the next stage of it. But no, he was like, I don't believe this. I'm going to pretend I do. And then just disappear in the night. Fucking hell.
Mom! Dad! Mark's gone!
What?
You, sir, are a gentleman indeed. Yeah, right. And gentlemen know when other gentlemen are lying.
Yeah, quite surprising, and that they're portraying Mark as quite a smart character. So that's nice. Yeah.
It's that. It's just I like having my expectations subverted in clever ways. I don't just want to, twist and stupid shit like that. I want this stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm glad it went in this direction. But unsurprisingly, he's not cut out for the jungle. And after getting startled by a snake, he steps in quicksand and starts to sink. We talked before about the willingness of actors to do stuff and all that. This is a very messy scene. And while, of course, it isn't quicksand, there's definitely a certain level of commitment to putting this kid in mud. And I did like that.
Yeah, it was in this moment I actually started to grow to appreciate the actor that plays Mark, his performance here, because I thought he acted really well, acting like he's really trapped in this quicksand that looks more like mud, I thought. But also he's wisecracking a lot during this scene. And I thought it was quite enjoyable, his wisecracking, whereas before I found him a little bit grating, but actually grew to like him a little bit here. Yeah.
You said it, and I noted it too. His behavior here is funny. It actually is. As Corinne comes along and struggles to help him, and it's their back and forth here, and his kind of sarcastic wisecracks, as you say. And you could argue, why would he be making that shit in if he's in danger? But I don't know, man. We've had lots of screaming and shouting and help me. It's just fresh and it's fun.
Definitely.
And I would argue this episode might be up there as one of the least serious for you as a watcher to take seriously. So this is one where you must, I believe, more than any other, unchain your brain and just see it for what it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, where it kind of loses its way is when it kind of goes back to the Kalia part. And he's reminded of the Shrunken Head, who holds up high and says the word Kalia, which creates a vine tentacle that drags them out of the quicksand. Obviously, Corinne is quite amazed by what just happened, and she argues that he can trust her because she doesn't like her parents. No, it's not going to be you don't have to like your parents, but doesn't mean you're going to betray them.
Mark, what's going on?
Saving my life! Kalia! Kalia! Kalia!
She then tells them that the jungle magic experiments on the locals were done by her father when Benna refused to give him the secret of jungle magic. And the shrunken head now comes to life and starts to lead them through the jungle. En route, Kareen and Mark talk about Benna and how his overriding memory of her involves her visiting with the amulet when he was 8. So we are kind of getting the full picture here now. It is one of those MacGuffins, a convenience, but it wasn't like they just dropped it in now. They have hinted at it before and done 2 separate dream sequences that tie in. So I'm not too mad with them.
Yeah.
They now spy a campfire and think it must be Benna, but fall into a pit trap. It is a good thing she didn't put spikes in the bottom of that pit.
Very good.
Because someone dressed in a native outfit taunts them from above, but this person is revealed to be Benna, who is shocked to see them there. She helps them out, is suspicious of Kareen, but kind of listens to what Mark's saying and so on, and, you know, she's happy to see him.
What's he saying?
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's not have a nice day.
Mark?
He knows my name. Aunt Benna?
What are you doing? How did you find me here?
Well, can we come out of the hole first?
Yeah, oh, sorry, just a sec.
Benna now reveals that jungle magic can't be used by anyone outside of the natives and that they can't let the Holians get their hands in it. But Kareen now reveals that she is a villain that led Richard and Carolyn to Benna. Now, while I did expect this, it still was kind of fun. It was still done in a nice way. And she particularly, I thought she quite turned villain with a certain level of glee.
I actually thought her heel turn was a little bit unexpected. But, that's just me. That's what it is, man. That's yeah.
By God, she's hit Mark with a chair.
Maybe I wasn't paying like close enough attention, but I thought, well done, Goosebumps. I thought that was quite unexpected.
Cool, awesome. She takes the shrunken head for Mark and tries to get it to work, but it doesn't. Mark refuses to help her and demands Benna tell him how jungle. What's his name? I've forgotten his name. Where have I missed it? Richard. Richard tells him how jungle magic works. Demands to know. And then I love her comeback here. I wouldn't tell you how the phone book works. I just wrote, burn, man. That is sick.
You know that hurts him.
Yeah. Back at the camp, they have Benna hostage and are planning to shrink Mark's head if she doesn't tell them what they need. And incredibly, we see Mark hanging upside down over a pit of liquid that can shrink his head. That is not only amazing, and we get a long shot of it as well. So they kind of went a bit with this one. So I'm quite impressed.
I think child safety laws would have something to say about that these days.
It's a little something I picked up from the Narawaya tribe.
Aunt Benna! Don't let him do this to me.
A sort of do-it-yourself head-shrinking machine.
Ah! Let me out! Ah!
The hilarity of the scene, though, is that Benna apparently didn't see this until now. Because she's talking to Richard, even though she's outside in the same area. And it's only when he points out Mark's predicament that she kind of looks to her left and goes, oh my God. So, what the fuck, Benna?
Oh, that's what that is dangling in the my eye.
Benna tells Mark to remember his 8th birthday and the gift he was given. Benna continues to refuse to tell Richard the secret of jungle magic as Mark is lowered step by step headfirst towards the liquid. A nice little tense scene going on here. And Mark now flashes back to his birthday as we see that Benna gave him the amulet but used it to put magic inside of him. He now realizes that it's not actually the shrunken head, but he's the one with the jungle magic. So I liked that idea. I think that's cool. It works, except for what follows.
Yeah, I think it's quite a cheesy idea. I mean, it does they explain how it works, but just the old, it's not the object, the magic is in you thing, you know. I don't know. Take it or leave it.
Okay, what I certainly can leave is what happens next. As he uses the magic words to free himself, floats in the air in a horrendous effect. and then turns the zombified goons into Haulings, and they fall backwards into the pit, now captured. Yeah, it's a very childish, silly, cheesy finale.
Sounds like Mark had some impenetrable plot armor there, if you ask me.
Stop, you hear?
Yes, indeed. No, that's true. We need an end, unfortunately, and I don't know how else we could have got there.
It is a good shot at the end of the day, so I'll forgive it.
I look at it this way: over about 44 minutes, I'd say I've been more satisfied than not so far in this episode. So I won't be too mad at a bad ending.
Yep.
But we're not quite done yet. Of course, as Bennett and Mark reunite, and Bennett tells him that he has to give the magic back now, and she uses the amulet to hypnotize him. And we cut to him back home telling the story of how he got his shrunken head to his mother's boyfriend. So the guy at the start who ran away and all that has apparently come back and been hanging out and now talking to Mark. So we kind of get a little bit of a nice thing there.
Yeah.
However, before he goes to bed, he opens up his cupboard to reveal that the Haulings are in a tank really small. He feeds them some bread and tells them that his aunt is working on a cure and is planning to bring it to him on his 16th birthday. What the fuck was this?
Don't know. How do you feel about the moral implications of him keeping human beings as miniature pets?
Yeah, but not only that, also his glee about it. I know they're not good people, but his glee about it is really odd. But like the whole idea that Benna wouldn't just have kept them herself with her while she works in the cure, and instead given them as like a pet for Mark to occasionally feed is really fucking weird.
Yeah, like
weird.
How did that conversation go when she was like, how about you take them home with you, Mark, in this little cage, and you can keep them as pets? And he was like, yeah, that sounds great.
Don't worry, you guys. My Aunt Benna said she was going to find a way to bring you back to your normal size. She's going to bring it when she comes to visit. On my 16th birthday.
What can I do?
It's an odd thing, and you know what it almost feels as well? It kind of feels forced. It kind of feels like it's Goosebumps, and we got to have something a little bit sinister and weird and unusual and scary, if you want, for a certain age. And this is what we've got. And it's like, it just didn't work for me.
No, because
it was weird.
It makes Mark as a character kind of changes your opinion a little bit on him. Because I don't care how evil they are, they're still human beings, and keeping them like that, I mean, I don't know, there's I said, the moral implications and just make him definitely adds a certain level of evilness to Mark as a character. So I don't know, I don't know why she didn't just keep them, like you said. It doesn't make much sense.
I 100% agree, and it's really the last sort of 5 to 8 minutes, maybe a little less than that it all kind of falls apart to a degree. Up to that point, I think this episode overall is above average, mainly thanks to a strong cast, good writing for the characters, and good plot points that move the story along without it ever becoming too stupid. And weirdly, the aspect of the shrunken head takes a massive backseat for the most part to the story of the characters and that development, as well as a number of interesting locations, cool stunts, good visual effects. All of that puts this in the above average. Not a great episode, mainly because of how it falls apart in the last couple of minutes. But I reflect on it positively.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've pretty much covered it and summed it up perfectly. I think it was an all-rounder solid two-parter. I do think it is lacking a little bit in the scares and horror department. That's why maybe they put in the dream sequences, because if you take them out of it, it doesn't really have many other horror aspects to it, which is a bit disappointing, I thought. So and there's a lot of like meandering around talking. I felt like in places it was a little bit bland, but and on the whole, like it's not an episode, you know. In my memories of thinking about my favorite Goosebumps episodes, not one that always spring to mind, and that's why I think like when it comes up, I'm like, oh, what's this one about? And I hear him saying the word that I'm not going to repeat again because no one wants to hear that, and I don't really even. That's what makes you remember it, but nothing else does, and I think that probably says a lot about it to me. In that not many things really excite me about it as an episode, I would say, but it's solid enough. But I think in amongst the the many episodes of Goosebumps, it's kind of just there. Yeah.
In a tier list, it would likely sit right in the middle.
Exactly.
And it would also have suffer from a major problem, and one that is only a problem if you continue to watch the rest of season 4. But we will get into that into the next video. That is how I got my shrunken head getting goosebumps. Got any thoughts that you know what to do? Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?